In this video, we will be covering how to use a pivot chart. So basically, pivot charts are like any other charts in Excel and they have to make sense. And when you think of it that way, this means that you can't just select any amount of data and expect the chart to represent that data accurately. So this is a very important thing to remember. So as I mentioned on a few occasions now, your pivot tables are basically used to filter through your data, and then the pivot charts can represent that filtered data. So what we're going to be doing in this tutorial and in the next one is creating 3 pivot tables and their related pivot charts. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to build this first pivot table, and I've got this sort of idea in my head as to what I would like to do. So what I would like to do is just create a simple pivot table using this area here. So I'll just put area in the rows and then the net profit, which will go into the values, and that's it. So I think a pivot chart would suit this little pivot table here, and I think a pie chart would be best. So to insert a pivot chart, just select your pivot table, then come to the pivot table analyze, and here you will find pivot chart. But before I click on this, we have this option here which is recommended pivot tables. So I'll just click on this just to show you what it looks like. So if you're kind of stuck for ideas as to what you want to do with the pivot table fields, you can rely upon some of these recommended combinations. But in all honesty, I think it's relatively simple enough just to do the pivot table fields yourself. But you could use some of these options if you really wanted to. So I'll just click cancel for now. So now I'm going to click on the pivot chart. As you can see, we have a lot of charts to choose from. But all I want to get is this pie chart here. So I'll just click on it. And if you wanted to, you can select one of these different formats up here at the top of pie chart. But I just want to keep things simple, and I'm just going to use the first option, which is the default option, and I'll click OK. Okay, so here's the beginning of our pie chart. Just to let you know, I'm not going to go into too much formatting in this tutorial because we will be covering that in a separate tutorial. So I'll keep this chart as simple as possible in this tutorial and in the next tutorial as well. So you'll notice that we have these sort of gray buttons on the chart, this one and this one. So to get rid of these buttons, you can just right click on that and come down to hide all field buttons on chart and click on that, and they'll go away. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just give this chart a title. So I'll just select this title and change its name something like area net profits, and I'll just click outside this, and also I'm just going to give the sheet the same title. Okay, so here is our pivot chart. As you can see, I would say it makes sense, but I think we can do a few things with the chart just to improve it a little bit. So just coming to the chart style options here, I think the best option would be this gray option here. So I'll just select that, and that would be because we have these data labels here giving us the percentage of each piece of the pie. So like I said, I'm not going to do too much formatting, but I need to do just a little bit. So I'm just going to enlarge this item here, and I'm going to move the pie chart over to the left. So basically, to move the pie chart around, all you need to do is just click outside the chart like this, click, hold and drag wherever you want. So I'll just put it here, and I'll just move this a little to the left also. Now it looks perfect. Now if you click on this plus icon here, you have here the chart elements. So you can uncheck some of these chart elements or you can just bring them back. So for example, I can just uncheck the chart title and it will go away. So I'll just check this box again and I need to change my title again. So I'll just select that and change my title. And you can also choose, if you just click on this little arrow here, where those chart elements are placed. So at the moment I think it's okay in this layout. Okay, so this is our nice little pivot chart here and I would say it represents the data quite well. But let's actually insert a slicer so that we can change this chart around and extract more data out of it when we need it. So with the chart selected, come to pivot chart analyze and come to insert slicer and click on that. And now we can choose a slicer. Now there's one very important thing to remember when it comes to choosing a slicer for your charts. And that is, realistically you can't just choose any slicer. Or actually another way to put it, I could choose any slicer I want, but it might not make any sense. So which slicers should you use? Well, by default, if you just stick to the field list items that you have put into these four boxes here, then it should work quite well. So we have area and we have sum of net profit. So I'm going to select area and I'll select net profit. And as you can see, both of them have been selected. So I can just click OK. And if you remember, the slicers are basically just filtering tools. So what I did was I just brought these slicers over to the right. Now if I were to just click on the west here, you can see that the chart comes back as 100%, which is not all that useful. I mean, the pivot table is giving us some useful information. We can see the net profit in the west, or at least it's been filtered to that point. I suppose we should select another area, so just hold down control and select another area like this and just let go of control. So now we have the south and the west, and that is giving us a good idea of what is going on in both of those areas. You can hold down control once again and maybe select the third option, which is north, and just let go of control. And then of course you can just clear the format and the chart will go back to the way it was before. Let's see what happens if we adjust the slicer for the net profit. Let's scroll down to the bottom and select multiple items for net profit. So I'm going to select the largest amounts from the bottom. So I'll just select the 6 amounts or maybe 5 amounts from here. If you also wanted to, you can actually make these just a little bit larger if you wanted to. But I've selected all these options here and I don't think much has happened. So let's just click on one of these options. Okay, it's coming back as 100% in the east. So I'll just hold down control and select multiple items. Now I'll just let go of control. I would say the best slicer for this is probably just the area slicer, and that would be the only one I'll keep. So I'll just clear filter, and as I mentioned, the best slicers are going to be the ones that are within the rows, columns and the values. Now I didn't mention this before, but filters doesn't really matter because the slicers are filters. So it's just the columns, rows and values area. So with this our first pivot chart is done. And you may agree with me that it's not that difficult. So what we are going to do now in the next tutorial is create two more scenarios with the pivot table and insert some more charts and of course some slicers as well. So see you in the next tutorial.